There's just something wonderful about pirate games, isn't there? From sailing across the ocean and engaging in truly cinematic naval battles, to finding buried treasure. It is truly one of gaming's best themes. But where there's success for one studio, another studio has to completely drop the ball on it. Pirate101 is a strange game. Coming after the massive success of 2008's Wizard101, it was meant to expand the world that KingsIsle had made. Fancy new graphics, new gameplay, even having slightly more mature themes and everything else someone could want in a new game. However, the delivery left far more to be desired. The game wasn't bad, in fact, it was quite a breath of fresh air to actually go and play. Yet some of the stuff is absolutely grueling to have to go and play for, and some of the worst mechanics I've seen in games to begin with. The game starts almost the same as Wizard 101, where you get to make your own character. Unlike Wizard though, these choices matter a lot more, giving you different companions to use or changing what different buffs you have. These range from small +5 chance to dodge to much more useful 5% increases. There's really only a few choices here that actually make sense for the game, as 5% will always tend to be better than the flat numbers in KingsIsle games, but it's nice to have these options and have different character builds right off the gate. You also get to pick your class. Just like in Wizard, where you have a bunch of schools, in Pirate, you have a bunch of classes you can pick from, though a lot of them overlap a lot more than Wizard. In Wizard, where you generally don't want to train many schools in their entirety, Pirate kind of has you doing that. Every single class has skills that other classes could use, and it makes a unique building system for your characters, where you can have a different build than one other person, and somebody else will have an entirely different build. And that's something that's quite nice of a change of pace compared to Wizard. After creation, we finally get to start playing the game, and it happily has all the things that made Wizard 101 good with a few changes. Quests are still there, and combat is still avoided the same exact way, though where Wizard 101 has just a simple card system, Pirate 101 requires you to use skills and gives you a grid-based combat system, with more victory objectives than simply defeating the opponent. This simple change gives the combat a lot better of a feel, and lets them do a lot more than what could be done in Wizard, because you actually now have the option to do anything else but defeat the same person 8 times in a row. Though, that's still here. Of course, this is a pirate game after all, so what do ships look like? Well, they look pretty darn nice. There are multiple ships to pick from, with all different designs based on wherever they came from, and at the end of the game, it doesn't matter which design you take because they will all have the same stats. Though, before you get to that point, each ship in the line ends up being better, so you will be changing ships often enough up until your max level. So, how's ship combat like? I sure hope it looks like this. Yeah, this is by far the worst ship combat I have ever had the displeasure of playing. You do absolutely nothing but hit 4 buttons and get to watch mists appear multiple times, meaning that these fights can either take a few seconds or straight up to 15 plus minutes. This is the current time it takes you to do these. Before this, most quests had you defeating significantly more ships, taking the quests from a couple of minutes to a lot longer. For example, one quest that's still in the game is this one, where you need to go and defeat 24 ships. That is an insane amount of time of sitting still and doing absolutely nothing but hitting 4 buttons. So while ships look cool, it is an absolute dread to see anything require using them. They could have easily probably made like a grid-based system for this where you could control a fleet or something, but they didn't, and we got this ship combat. Ship-based activities, though, sadly also take up about 50% of the game, including travel time. Originally, you had to sail from one sky island to the next, and it would take an insane amount of time, as every ship had limited fuel/speed boost, and once you used all of it, you either had to dock and pay some gold for more, or you could cast credit card and get yourself infinite fuel for a small amount of time. Speaking of real-life money, let's talk about the other worst thing in this game. There's a lot of stuff here, and it's pretty much the same as Wizard. Plenty of card packs for kids to gamble on gear and such, and it all becomes instantly worthless in a couple of levels. Though we do have one new tab compared to Wizard. In this game, we have companion characters. In this tab, you can go and buy companions, which is the new system that this game introduced. Basically, instead of fighting by yourself, you now have companions that can fight alongside you. They are only 1 per player character though, so if you want to get them on all characters, you're going to be paying for it on every single one. But they're at least usable, in some cases. The other most interesting thing in this crown shop is also in the companion tab. See, while you can unlock companions during the main story and side quests, you can also get some by defeating main bosses. Though you don't just get them for beating them. No, no, no. You have to earn the right to spend money on this game. So you have to go and beat that boss 25 times to then get the privilege to spend money on the game. Or in some cases, you have to complete the whole dungeon 25 times to get the right to spend money on this game. Meaning you have to do multiple quests over and over and over again to just get the chance to buy them. This is by far the worst thing in this game. Companions, though, are also the full bread and butter of this game, so it incentivizes the crown shop more. Every class gets a selection to pick from, and for the most part, all of them are unique. There's also a group of general companions that every single class gets. All companions are genuinely super customizable too, having a selection of skills and abilities that you can teach them and use, making it so theoretically everyone might be running a different build than what you are. This adds a lot of charm to the game and gives it a lot more depth than you would find in Wizard 101. Now, with a slightly more mature theme for Pirate 101, we can do a much darker story than we had in Wizard 101. In the first 2 hours of gameplay, you get 6 confirmed murders on screen. These 3 rats, a gun, this platypus, and then later you straight up get on-screen deaths, being this guy and this guy. That's a lot more death than Wizard. Heck, even in Pirate 101, in the first 2 seconds you choose how your family dies. The darkest thing in early Wizard I remember is this dude crashing out over the greatest life wizard ever, failing to not be sick. Honestly, valid. For the most part of the story though, we are working to find the mythical Kingdom of Gold, El Dorado. To most likely not plunder its riches because, well, we're pirates, not thieves. This is still a kid's game after all. However, to do that, we need to find the pieces of Marco Polo's map to find the storm gate that will actually let us go to El Dorado, as the storm gate changes where it is constantly. The story itself is super interesting and a really good breath of fresh air compared to Wizard, having us do a lot more morally gray actions than what we would have ever done in Wizard, and the story having more tooth to it as we actually have more reason to go to different places than Merle Ambrose calling us back and telling us we're now going to this new world. Then, the story decided it was not going to be cool anymore. Alright, now for some very mild spoilers. The main boss basically just figures out where the entire Stormgate is using his very few amount of pieces, because we hit the point in the story where King Zal just straight up abandons this game. Mind you, this occurred in 2016, and the game has been pretty much untouched for almost a decade, to the point where the updates weren't based on months, but instead years. Pirate 101, unlike its sister game, did not make nearly as much money compared to Wizard, mostly because selling people on 2 MMOs is extremely hard, and because King Zal tried to get into the mobile game market and it absolutely failed. Having moved or laid off most of the development team, only about 3 to 5 some people were actually working on Pirate. For multiple years, the game just straight up sat around with very, very minimal content and updates. Mostly just rehashing things from Wizard 101 for their game, as at this point in later Pirate's life, Wizard 101 pretty much catched up to its graphics and everything that Pirate was doing, so they could just take from Wizard and plop it right into Pirate. Luckily though, randomly, King Zal decided they wanted to work on Pirate 101 again, and for the first time in a very long time, the game actually got an update. The level cap went up, and some companions got new skills and changes, new main story content was added, and most importantly, some quality of life improvements that made the game not unbearable to play sometimes. With some of the most major ones being less ship combat and less time traveling from island to island, thanks to the new teleporter system. Now, instead of fighting 10 to 12 ships, you only fight about 4 to 5, which is infinitely better. This brings us up to speed on the wonderful world of Pirate 101. Though I personally have a lot of nostalgia for Wizard 101, and coming to Pirate having never played it before, it does scratch the same itch Wizard did, with just that extra bit of new and fresh that Wizard doesn't really have anymore. They even add one of my absolute favorite things in all of their games: puppet shows. During some of the main stories, you get these little cutscenes with puppets, and it's just really nice, and I want them to bring it to Wizard, but they probably won't. So if you want to go and experience the wonderful world of Pirate 101, I'd recommend it. It's a fun and unique experience of a game to play, especially for those who have played a lot of Wizard 101 and want something that's pretty darn close, but different enough to offer a new variety.